أنا ما
Great. Let's wait for the pictures to settle down. Perfect. Well, thank you for joining us today. Great to be here in Sharm el Sheikh, and very exciting to be with this esteemed group of panelists. Maybe before we get into the context and the objective of the panel, it would be great to introduce our panelists. I'm Tamer Abed, Managing Director and Partner with the Boston Consulting Group. To my left, His Excellency Mohammed Al Hamadi, who is the Chief Executive Officer and Managing Director of ENEC, the Emirates Nuclear Energy Corporations. We have Mr. Abdel Nasser bin Kalban, who is the CEO of Emirates Global Aluminum, and Jassim Thabat, who is the Managing Director and CEO of TAQA. Yeah, welcome and thank you for being here. Maybe to set the tone, so 90% of the world's economy have committed to UAE net zero, and you've heard in COP and in the past few months, the need for a transition that ensures energy supply, but also is committed to economic diversification. Yeah? And the UAE, which is the presiding host of COP28 next year in 2023, has committed to that ambition. They've adopted a strategy of not only lowering emissions, but also seeing this as an opportunity for economic growth. So this trade-off between an energy transition, more of an opportunity rather than an adversarial goals. And this is even as it is a major supplier of energy today. Last year, as you all know, the UAE announced the Net Zero Strategic Initiative, which was the basis for achieving net zero by 2050, but also being a vehicle for economic diversification, job creation, and industrial expansion. And many of the panelists you see here today are playing an immense part in driving those goals. And so today what we'll talk about is the UAE's drive toward decarbonization, its drive toward economic diversification, and we'll hear about how both ENEC, TAQA, and EGA are playing their role in that transition. Now we are live streaming, so maybe it would be helpful to the global audience. I know individuals in the room are well aware of these global leaders. To get a brief introduction of your organizations, what you're doing, I think that would be helpful for the global audience.
Thank you, David. So, first of all, thank you for having us here on this panel, and I'm really honored to be here at the COP27 here in Sharm el Sheikh. Emirates Nuclear Energy Corporation is a company responsible to build and responsible to operate the nuclear power plants in the UAE. As of today, we have 3 reactors operational in the UAE, and very soon we'll have the 4th reactor. Those 4 reactors will provide around 25% of electricity for the UAE, and will enable UAE to avoid emitting around 20 to 22 million tons of CO2 emissions annually. So that's a major transition for the UAE in the climate footprint, and also will be an accelerator for the UAE for the net zero by 2050. And the program took almost a decade to start and operate. And this program today becoming a testimony of the UAE success and the UAE commitment to clean sources of energy, and specifically nuclear. It's proven to be safe, reliable, and sustainable to provide energy security and energy sustainability at the same time.
Of course, congratulations for the 3rd reactor coming online.
Thank you.
Bringing the nuclear capacity of 4.2 out of 5.6 gigawatts. Mr. Abdel Nasser, it would be good to hear about EGA and what is EGA and what you're doing.
First of all, I would like to thank you for this great opportunity. This is my first time in COP, so it's a lot of things I think I've been learning from the last 2 days. I'm looking forward to participate with you in the COP28 in Dubai. I'm sure it's going to be another great show, and that will help us basically to raise the bar in terms of sustainability. Second, about EGA. EGA is, as you know, is the largest industrial company in the UAE. We in the UAE, the aluminum sector as a whole contribute to the economy by or basically 1.6% of the total UAE economy. So we employ more than 7,400 employees. This is the direct job. And indirect job is around 60,000 jobs. So it's significant contribution, the way we see it. And also, EGA is the biggest primary, premium aluminum producer in the world. Something we are really proud of. We send our metal to most of the customers globally. We have more than 350 customers worldwide, and we serve 50 countries. The biggest market we have is basically United States. After United States is Europe. We believe our product is the biggest made in the UAE after oil and gas. And personally, I believe this is the biggest UAE contribution to the fight against climate change. Why? Because we consider, and the world consider, aluminium is essential metal for decarbonization of the global economy. And we are proud to work in our sustainability program. We already signed the pledge for net zero by 2050, and we are looking for significant reduction in our emission by 2030. Still, we did not nail the final number, but it's going to be significant. So I'm looking forward to this.
Thank you and welcome. Jason?
Yeah, thanks, Tamer. So, TAQA, the Abu Dhabi National Energy Company, we're a publicly listed company on the Abu Dhabi stock market. Market cap of circa 115 billion US dollars. We're one of the largest companies on the stock markets in the UAE. We are a utility and oil and gas company. We're in the top 5 in Europe, Middle East, and Africa when it comes to regulated assets. And we have significant investments, I would say, in 3 business lines. The first is your generation of power and water. So those are the large power plants that are producing power and water. And then we have transmission and distribution. So transmitting all the power and water through high voltage and long pipelines, and then the distribution all the way to the customer end. Our third business line is oil and gas, where we have operations in oil and gas. We have operations in the Netherlands, Canada, and UK, and in Iraq. And again, as a utility company, we have significant investment plans for investments. As part of our 2030, I would say, growth strategy, we've committed to grow X amount of gigawatts. And in the UAE, we will be deploying more renewable projects and more cleaner or green water, as they might call it, reverse osmosis. I would say outside of the UAE, our biggest operations is in Morocco. We provide almost more than 40% of Morocco's power requirements. So that's, in a nutshell, a bit about TAQA.
Thank you, Joseph. And maybe piggybacking off the introduction, TAQA clearly has a global portfolio, but one of its biggest assets are here in the UAE. How are you seeing the energy mix in the UAE evolving? And what do you think are the driving forces behind that evolution?
No, I mean, the UAE has always been, I would say, at the forefront when it comes to diversifying its energy sources. We have renewable, we have nuclear, and we have fossil fuel, and we're deploying more gas-fired, more efficient gas-fired power plants. And as part of our strategy, by 2030, we'll be taking renewable will contribute more than 30% of our generation, and that'll be mostly PV solar plants. And also, maybe for the audience, especially the international audience, I mean, in the Middle East, a very heavy or energy-intensive process is the seawater desalination, and historically the seawater desalination has been coupled with the power plants and the use of traditional thermal. And now we're rolling out additional reverse osmosis technology, RO desalination, which is 70% more efficient. And by 2030, we will take RO from being just roughly 15% of our water capacity to over 65% of our water capacity. So that, I mean, we're a very integral part in the UAE and Abu Dhabi energy transition.
Thank you. And I think on top of this, you've also recently committed to a 25% reduction in Scope 1 and 2. You announced this a few weeks ago. Do you want to say a few words on
yeah,
that?
sure. I mean, so we announced our strategy a year back, and we always said in our strategy that going forward, our investments, we will take ESG as a very serious component of our investment decisions going forward. Last month, we announced our ESG strategy, and maybe just the key, I won't go through the whole thing, I mean, just the key components which are maybe relevant to COP is we announced our interim, so obviously we're committed to the 2050 net zero in line with the UAE. Beyond that, we've announced our interim 2030 targets, and for our interim 2030 targets, we announced as a global operations a reduction of 25% in Scope 1 and Scope 2 compared to a baseline of 2019. And specifically in the UAE, also we're committing to a 33% reduction again for Scope 1 and Scope 2 compared to 2019 baseline. So when I say compared to 2019 baseline, that is an absolute emission reduction. And beyond the power is also the seawater desalination that also we've committed to roll out additional seawater RO plants. And how do we get to the Scope 1 and Scope 2 reductions is, again, rolling out more renewable projects. So from now to 2030, the plan is to deploy circa 9 gigawatts of renewable projects in the UAE alone. And also decommission the older, inefficient gas-fired plants. And we're planning to decommission circa 7 gigawatts of gas-fired plants. So that's high level, the announcements that we made last month.
Thanks, Jassim. And of course, we know that you're working on the demand side management as well. So coming together, then it's quite a big contribution. Thank you. Maybe moving to the other source of energy in the UAE, and Your Excellency, you are the UAE is the only country in the region that has a operating civil nuclear plant. You mentioned you now have the third of the fourth reactors up and running. What advantages do you see nuclear giving to the country as the first, and hopefully maybe not the first in the region?
So Tamer, if I may take your question and just kind of go back and a bit higher level. So your previous question was about what did the UAE do when it comes to energy mix, and if I can take you back to 2007, 2008, the UAE had a very visionary, and thanks to the leadership of the UAE, a very visionary outlook on the future. What should be the energy mix for the nation that provides clean, reliable sources of electricity? And fast forward to today, as my colleague mentioned, we have renewable, we have nuclear, we have gas plants, and that creates a portfolio of energy that is less affected by the prices of going up and down. Once you build a nuclear reactor, it will run for 60 years. The cost of the operation and maintenance, the only small variable, the rest of it is all committed and all fixed. So even nuclear power plants, when it comes to life cycle over 60 years, it goes against inflation because the capital investment is already invested in. So this diversified portfolios of energy today provides UAE with a clean source of energies, more resilient when it comes to the prices fluctuation. And the third, to provide UAE the opportunity that we could maneuver from different sources. We go from renewable to nuclear to other sources of energy. That was not there 10 years ago. So investing in the nuclear, civilian nuclear power plants in the UAE enables the UAE to be able to tap into this energy and be able to build more of whatever sources make economic sense for the country. So going back to your question, nuclear provides for the UAE a major source of electricity for decades to come. provides also high-value jobs for the young people to be able to work on this high technology sector. And the third, to provide a source of electricity that very clean, has no emissions. I mentioned earlier, by the 4 units, we'll be avoiding 22 million tons of CO2 emissions annually. Just to put this in perspective, by the way, that's equivalent to around 4 million cars. In the UAE, we have 3 million cars. So this means the transportation sector in the UAE, from an emissions point of view, will be avoided by those 4 units. So it's a great opportunity, and we are really blessed with the leadership we have in the UAE. Clear vision, far sight. What the UAE did 10 years ago made us today ahead of the curve when it comes to energy security, energy sustainability.
And also provides an example for the rest of the region. And maybe answering that, nuclear also provides baseload capacity. So as renewable comes online and as storage technology gets more and more efficient and costly, you have the advantage of nuclear providing baseload capacity into the country.
Tamra, if I may also add, and my colleague mentioned the ESG, what is also very important today, the UAE has a program for the green certificates, and I'm sure EGA is already enjoying that by buying renewable. Adsw is also enjoying that by buying nuclear. Today, 95% of our electricity is committed by and sold to Adsw, and this enables Adsw and enables the UAE industry to go international. Sorry, the mic was on and off. So it enables UAE and UAE industries to go internationally and export the cleanest barrel of oil, to provide the cleanest aluminum to the world. And this is UAE's commitment. UAE has been ahead of the curve and continue to be ahead of the curve in energy and industry and the rest of it.
So improving the competitiveness of all the exports. Maybe one other question. Looking ahead, where do you see nuclear in the overall, say, global energy transition? So there's many debates around nuclear. What is your view around nuclear's role in the energy transition?
So what happened in last year in Glasgow, there is a turning point around the view of nuclear. So nuclear is becoming much more of the solution. And the recent report by the IEA, the International Energy Agency, that nuclear need to double by 2050 to be able to achieve net zero. Without that doubling of doubling of nuclear, it will be difficult to achieve net zero by 2050. That's one. Second, today UAE being the first Arab country to develop nuclear power plants, being the first in the Middle East to develop civilian nuclear power plants. This enables us now to build a new generation of nuclear capacities in the region. We could also capitalize on the opportunity of hydrogen, clean hydrogen, and this is something very high potential and huge volume of businesses there. Third, also the investment outside the country. Today we know how to make nuclear power plant business bankable. We could do this in Europe, we could do this internationally, and that expertise of project management, of operation, of maintenance, of starting up reactors takes a lot of expertise and discipline. And we have the young generation who's qualified now in this industry to be able to run the power plant, structure the business deal, sign the deal, and manage those assets for decades to come.
Thank you. Maybe switching, so we've talked to the main sources of power in the UAE, and Mr. Abdel Nasser, you are, of course, a main consumer of power. You're in a hard-to-abate sector with aluminum. You're also a large emitter in the UAE, but at the same time, a key contributor to the UAE economy. And so, what is EGA doing to reduce emissions? There are many things that have been, say, announced, and you're working on. It would be great to tell the audience some of those key flagship projects that you're working on.
Okay, thank you. As you know, as aluminum industry, electricity generation counts for 60% of greenhouse gas emissions, which is really significant. EGA is set today in the middle of the carbon curve in our industry. So we are better than the producer who use coal to make aluminum, like the ones in China and India. Yeah. But of course, we are not better than the Western smelter who use hydropower. Yeah. So one of the strategic moves we done recently is to join the FMC, which is the First Movers Coalition run by Secretary John Kerry. And I'm sure the guys, everybody knows him well. He really passionate about what we are doing here and sustainability, and his fight against climate change is really remarkable. So we want to be part of this team. I can see the list is growing, and a lot of industrial company now part of it. And the idea is basically to create a net zero club where we are basically operating together as a team in order to solve for the climate issues and how we can basically drop our carbon emissions. The second thing, we've been working with the Taqa team here. We call it Project Square. Project Square basically is nothing but converting our efficient gas turbine and hand it over to the grid, and instead sign a power purchase agreement with the grid to import nuclear power, to import solar power. And this is crucial for us. It will be a step in the right direction for our strategy. And by doing that, as His Excellency mentioned, we'll be able to buy more IREX certificate, which is well organized or recognized certificates by our customers. And by doing that, I mean, we managed to do that with DEWA in 2021. We managed to basically produce almost 50,000 tons of green power. We call the product Celestial, and within no time, we managed to sell it to our strategic partner, BMW. And BMW, by using our metal, they managed to reduce their emission by 50%. Wow. So they are very happy with it, and I would like to tell you all the fleet of BMW now is using EGA metal. So something we are really proud of, and I'm sure everybody around me should be proud of as well. So it's a step in the right direction, and as I'm telling you, Square will open more doors for us. We will be the single biggest customer in the whole UAE grid. We will be around 1/3 of the grid demand, basically. So I think it's very important. And the best thing about our load profile is basically base load, constant throughout the year. And I think it's perfect fit for any nuclear reactor. So I'm asking His Excellency if he can install more reactor for us. I think we are more than happy to offtake it. So between the two suppliers, we are trying to make the most out of it. And I'm really passionate about the project. The project is not only for EGA, it basically will open more doors about other industry to follow EGA. Is let's call it a shining example where all the industry, all the energy players will come to a club, try to solve for these difficult issues facing the whole human being, and inshallah before 2050 will be successful to crack it, and we save our planet.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Clearly an example of cross-industry collaboration, working together, customers, producers, and power providers to decarbonize the industry. So great example for sectors to also serve as a case study for other sectors. Maybe switching gears to the second half, we're halfway through. What I wanted to talk about is partnerships, right? Along the same theme that we just ended on. Your Excellency, you were recently in DC with the UAE-US Business Council. You were with the Hydrogen Roundtable in DC. And I'm sure there are many discussions around the future of nuclear, the new opportunities that it provides. Can you give a glimpse of what were some of those discussions like, and what do you see nuclear heading into in terms of new opportunities for decarbonization?
Thank you, Tama, for that question. And the future is bright today. As I said earlier, today, the world, to meet the net zero target by 2050, we need to double the capacity of nuclear. The current technology that we're seeing right now is very promising. We have the SMR reactors, we have the also advanced reactors. All of these could be coupled with hydrogen production through extra ultra heat of hydrogen production that will bring the efficiency very, very high. So the potential is great. And this is now enables UAE to be part of these solutions. We are a great nation when it comes to integration of systems. We are a great nation to be able to develop and structure deals regionally, internationally. And Taqa is a key testimony of that, and my colleagues also from EGA is a global player. So for us, we see the future of integration of systems, be it the small modular reactors or the current reactors, coupled with hydrogen. Also, the opportunities we have in structuring deals internationally that we can help other nations develop civilian nuclear industry in a sustainable manner. So the future I see that what we've done today with the 4 reactors is only 20% what we achieved. The bright future is of another 80% is available for us to go after internationally. And if I could share an example with the audience, and this is a number that kind of makes me look at the world differently. Today, we have in the world of people who are enjoying electricity and enjoying energy. The current GDP is between $2,000 to $20,000 per GDP, and those people who are consuming the majority of the electricity we have right now. And the population of those individuals is around 700 million people. The people are below or around the $2,000. It's around 4 billion people, and they need electricity, they need energy, and those people will need that sooner or later. So that's a market, that's an energy that need to be maintained and need to be, met. And we all here have a responsibility to contribute in helping the 4 billion to be able to get light so they can study, get cooling or heating so they can enjoy their life and live a decent life. And that's what here at COP27 and COP28 that we will be hosting next year in Dubai, we have a great opportunity for us to work together. And if I can leave you with the keywords here, or the specific words, we need to cooperate and collaborate across academia, industry, government, to create a sustainable world for everybody to live in peace, for our children, grandchildren to have a decent and dignified life.
Thanks, and clearly you're right. I mean, this is the COP for developing countries, and it would be great to see more of the UAE exporting that capabilities to provide, as you say, energy security and energy affordability to the 4 billion that you mentioned. Thank you. Jassim, you recently joined the Alliance for Industry Decarbonization a few weeks ago. So clearly, collaboration and cooperation is also top of mind. What is the role that you see Taqa in the low carbon energy sector? What other alliances would you think would benefit the sector?
No, I think it's extremely important for utility and companies to be working hand in hand with key industries. And a good example is like what Abdel Nasser said, that we're working very closely with EGA to see how we can support them by providing more green energy and carving out certain power assets, integrating more into the grid. It's a base load, so therefore we can deploy more renewable, more PV. That's one example. Another example is just a few weeks ago we achieved financial close with ADNOC Offshore, and that's a project of circa over $3.5 billion building the infrastructure for a high voltage subsea cable. So connecting ADNOC Offshore operations to the Taqa grid. So again, we have a base load and also ADNOC benefit. It helps them lower the carbon footprint of their production, and also the grid benefits from a stable load, and where we will be able to, again, roll out more renewable projects. And I think another good example of collaboration is we announced some time ago now, and we're close to closing a major collaboration between ADNOC and Mubadala and Taqa, where Taqa will be a major shareholder in Masdar, and Masdar will have the full firepower of these 3 large organizations to pursue its growth. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of good stories in Abu Dhabi and in the UAE when it comes to very close collaboration between utility, energy, and other sectors across the supply chain.
And clearly also to add to the hydrogen is also a major focus area, not only through Mazda, but your existing projects that you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, again, like working closely with EGA, we're also working closely with Emirates Steel. And Emirates Steel has some requirements for green hydrogen to help them produce the green steel. So again, like the BMW, they'll be selling their steel at a premium, and also we have a base load, so furthermore base load in the system. So it's a win-win for everyone. Also, we signed an MOU with Abu Dhabi Ports to explore 2 gigawatt green hydrogen to green ammonia cluster in KZad in Abu Dhabi. So there's a lot of opportunities ahead of us.
Thank you, Jason. Mr. Abdel Nasser, you know, around the theme around collaboration, a few months ago you announced a collaboration with K-Line Shipping to help decarbonize the vessels that are carrying your bauxite and your alumina. Can you talk a little bit about that collaboration? What spurred that collaboration?
Well, thanks for the question. Thank you. This is one of the initiatives we've been working hard with our suppliers. As you know, part of ESG, which has become our top priority as a CEOs altogether, is basically find ways how to decarbonize. And from EGA point of view, we're looking at all the scope 1, 2, 3. And this is one of the initiatives we've been working with K-Lines, how to help us to decarbonize their fleet efficiency. I think the figure is around now, they're talking about recently 15 to 25%. So this is very important because, you know, the carbon content in our metal will be much reduced, you know, from the bauxite, alumina, and etc. I can tell you more about what we are doing. I mean, decarbonization is very important, but the main objective here for us is to basically maintain our market shares. This is very important. As I mentioned, EGA is the biggest aluminum producer in the world. We're not going to basically lose any market share because of the sustainability. So we'll do whatever it takes to maintain our commitment to not to 50%, in the future, and also net zero by 2050. A lot of things we are working because, you know, if we manage to have good sustainability story, we'll have very good growth for the company. The company meant to be global company. So we're looking also overseas to see if we can invest in a green aluminum smelter driven by green power. So we're looking at a couple of options at the moment, you know, in Asia, Europe, and of course, in the future will be United States. At the moment, we are concentrating not only in the primary, we are also looking at secondary smelters. Basically, how we convert the scrap aluminum to usable aluminum. This is a new requirement now by our customers. And if we mix the celestial, which is the solar power produced aluminum with the scrap, the CO2 content in the metal will be even below 3. We are expecting to be 2.5, which is basically a great achievement for the UAE. So in the secondary, we are heavily involved with our business development. We are looking at an option to build 200,000 ton within the UAE. At the moment, most of the UAE scrap business export to other nations. And we would like to basically capitalize as in our natural resources. For me, scrap is as good as oil and gas, as good as anything else. So one of the consultants was talking to me. He said, "Why only 200,000 ton?" Because we said we should go for a bigger smelter. I told him my understanding, EGA only, the UAE only produce 150,000. He said, "No, but you need to check Jebel Ali port." We found out Jebel Ali port is the biggest port in the world exporting aluminum scrap, and we were not aware of it. Jebel Ali port is only 5 kilometers away from us. So I think it's going to be a great business for us to be in the secondary business, and we would like to utilize all the internal resources and also the re-export resources outside the UAE. So this is one of it. We are considering a new product because, you know, to fight the climate and help the energy transition plan, you need to have most of the generation power will be away from the city, and you need to run overhead conductors basically to do it. So one of the new initiatives we'd like to consider with the secondary production of aluminium scrap is to basically produce aluminium overhead conductors, which can be utilized to help basically the transportation of the power from A to B. So this is another great idea. In the downstream, we're trying to see a great initiative of we can use the aluminium as a battery storage. Number of technologies do require aluminium to be basically part of the storage, and if we crack it, it will be great opportunity for our sustainability story within the UAE. So we are doing a lot, and we'd like to see how it goes. But one of the things even we are considering is a nature-based project, basically how to reduce and offset our CO2 emissions. And as I'm telling you, we will check everything. We're not going to leave any stone unturned. And I'm really positive about the future of EGA and the commitment of the United Arab Emirates. And I'm sure we will hit the target ahead of the 2050. So finger crossed.
Thanks. Quite a significant investment pipeline and business development pipeline. So looking forward to seeing those projects. How are your customers reacting to this? So the scrap usage, the green refinery. How are your customers reacting to this ambition, these projects? BMW clearly very happy.
Well, BMW, and I forgot to mention also we just signed an MOU with the tier 1 supplier of Mercedes-Benz. So the product's really on high demand. Trust me, I run away from the customer because I cannot meet their demand. So we are positive. They like the quality. They like the green aluminium and especially the carbon content within our product. And we're looking to do more. It's a great news for AGA and a great news for the economy.
Thank you. So clearly an attractive opportunity for your customers. Thank you. We're coming close to time. Maybe I'd like to offer each one of you any closing remarks or lessons you'd like to provide the audience from the work and the decarbonization that you're doing.
If I may
Yes.
start. So first of all, we're very glad to be here at the COP27, and it's a pleasant opportunity to meet colleagues and also share lessons learned. I would invite people to come to Dubai in COP28, where we could share the UAE success story on our civilian nuclear power plants and other success stories that the UAE managed to achieve. UAE has been ahead of the curve when it comes to sustainability. It's been ahead of the curve when it comes to energy security. So I invite you all to Dubai. And I mentioned the number of the 4 billion people that they need energy. That's an opportunity for us to work together, collaborate, create business opportunities, at the same time meet humanity's need in a sustainable and reliable manner. Nuclear will be part of the acceleration of net zero for the UAE, and that's something UAE takes very seriously, and we could share these lessons learned when you come and visit us in Dubai.
Thank you. Mr. Abdel Nasser.
Well, I'm still positive about the sustainability story globally. I think we will overcome the crisis if we all work together. Governments, semi-government company, private companies, is a threat for all the human beings, and I can see major cooperation taking place now. If you ask me about net zero 3 years ago, I don't believe it. But now what I see in front of eyes, especially after the pandemic, this is the reality, and we are committed basically for net zero, especially after our leaders draw the strategic map for us. And yes, from aluminium point of view, we will do whatever it takes to produce sustainable aluminium going forward. And the best thing about it, we will maintain our sustainability roadmap, and on top of that, we'll have economic growth for our company and our country. So we are really optimistic. The sustainable story will create a lot of jobs, and basically will save our planet.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Jasim.
No, Tamer, again, I just want to echo what my colleagues have said on the panel. I think we have a lot of success stories in the UAE when it comes to diversifying our energy sources and security of supply. And I think the energy transition is going to be the same. It's going to be a success story. I'm absolutely confident it's going to be a success story for the UAE. There's going to be a lot of opportunities for investment. It's not only on the generation side. The energy transition is going to require more collaboration between all the different parties. It's going to require collaboration between different stakeholders, government, regulators. And there's going to be opportunities for investments when it comes from, like you mentioned, the demand side management, and to upgrade all the networks and the infrastructure to be ready for the energy transition. So it's a very exciting time ahead of us, and I'm looking forward to COP28 too.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And before we thank our panelists, and thank you for the insight and for the time, clearly, net zero is an economic opportunity for other countries, and the UAE is really showcasing that live, that this is an economic case for the customers, for the producers, but also for customers as well. We have Ibrahim Al-Zobi, who will be joining us to share his reflections, so don't go anywhere. But thanks again to our panelists. A nice round of applause. شكرا. يعطيك العافية. شكرا. Shukran. Thank you. Thank you so much. Shukran. Thank you. Yeah. Welcome. Well, yeah. Great. Don't go anywhere. We have an exciting one-on-one fireside chat with Ibrahim. Ibrahim, you're one of the leading experts on sustainability, and I know I mentioned I struggled to summarize your credentials, but you're currently the SVP of Sustainability at ADNOC. You're the former Chief Sustainability Officer at Majid Al Futtaim. You've been and are a member of a number of boards and council. You're a member of the World Economic Forum Global Future Council on Net Zero Transition, on Circular Economy, and also on the Private Sector Advisory Council for SDGs, just to name a few. I know I didn't do it justice, but thanks for that. What are your reflections on what you've heard from the panelists?
First of all, thank you, Tamer, and it's a pleasure to be here, and I would like to welcome my colleagues. I think this is one of the most popular pavilions. We've been talking a lot of what the CEOs mentioned today. I think the hot topic is energy transition, so it came out bold. But the first reflection, I would say, is how the discussion developed and improved on sustainability by CEOs. So we listened to 3 CEOs talking about not their commitment to sustainability, but also talking how they will achieve their sustainability targets, which means I was looking at the case study of the UAE. I think the session name should be Your Practical Guide to Achieve Net Zero, because we've been listening to common targets, proof points, and implementation in different industries, be it an clean energy provider, to a consumer, an intensive industry that needs a lot of energy. We touched upon the business opportunity of circular economy in the case of aluminum, and also the diversified energy resources we should have. The highlight also being an ADNOC, of course, and I think Jassim did a great job on giving the commitments on how public-private or private-private partnership can work. He talked about our offshore commitments, the nuclear talked about onshore. So again, my highlight was, can we achieve sustainability targets? Yes, we can. And private sector can lead to do that.
And maybe to reflect on it, I mean, these are big companies, big sectors. I mean, they consume an immense amount of power. And the fact that they're able to do this at a large scale is also a proof point that it can be done in other places. So you're absolutely right, quite an impressive achievement. Now, in your role at ADNOC, can you tell us about what is ADNOC doing in terms of the energy transition? What role is it contributing to this?
You know, Tamer, when the CEOs were talking, I was taking a couple of points and reflecting on how energy transition can play a vital role on our journey towards climate action. And for the energy transition to succeed, we need more investments in renewables and the solutions that will transition hard to abate industries. So, one, we need to ensure that the lowest carbon emissions for our existing operations look at our carbon footprint as we speak right now. We don't shut off the operation, but ensure that it is one of the lowest carbon emissions, and this is the case in ADNOC, by the way. We're one of the lowest carbon intensity emissions globally, but also, in parallel, keep investing in renewables. So this is, for me, is a main point. Also, nuclear investments and diversified. So we talked about oil, gas, and renewables, and nuclear, and hydrogen, and of course, carbon capture technologies. So we look at technologies that will help us to lower our carbon footprint, such as the CCUS, investment in hydrogen, investment in renewables, investment in nuclear. So this all goes hand in hand. But also, we need also to be realistic. So while we're doing that, we need to ensure that we are being realistic on how we achieve our targets and how we can move away from existing energy resources we have. The minute we identify this, I believe we'll have the biggest formula for energy transition. And I believe this is exactly what was one of the main messages we've heard recently in the last 2 months. We've heard this in the opening speeches of Leaders Summit on the proper energy transition, just an inclusive energy transition, the relationship between Global South and Global North, but also the business opportunities that we can have in abating carbon emissions from existing energy resources, and also creating a future economy and future industries and renewables from energy transition.
Thank you. And maybe looking forward, what initiatives do you want to see coming out from the broader energy sector to decarbonize? So what do you think needs to happen more of, or isn't happening fast enough?
Well, when we talk about initiatives, I think it's important to share that globally, the United Arab Emirates already invested $50 billion in renewables in more than 70 countries, with a commitment of another $50 billion by 2030. So this will accelerate different initiatives. But if we can be specific on different initiatives to decarbonize, looking at the road to COP28, let's be clear first when it comes about initiatives and opportunities. COP28 will be the most inclusive and ambitious. So can I tell you how many? Thank you. Well, you can all clap. We can hope for the best. Not for me, for COP28. I'm sure Anka would like that. But so if you ask, when you say most ambitious, it's so hard to talk about initiatives. But I look at the $50 billion by 2030 as and the first step of that. So we look at the energy transition. We look at the supply chain, which is the whole world is talking about it. We look at a disruptive supply chain. So the ambition is to work with the supply chain to ensure there is a market, for example, for hydrogen. There is a market for low carbon emissions energy resources. And also, we look at methane and existing initiatives. So the ambition, my personal ambition, initiatives is, and I think His Excellency Mohammed mentioned it about it, we need to collaborate and cooperate. So if we do that, I kid you not, we will have the most practical initiatives and acceleration for existing initiatives, such as the methane commitment that is led by United Nations Environment Program, which we as ADNOC as well committed to it to have the lowest methane intensity by 2025, the lowest in the Middle East. So we started to have actually initiatives. We shouldn't wait for COP28. Now, what kind of initiative will go into which direction? I can give you again back to energy transition. Energy transition, energy security, affordable energy transition, and also creating a new economy and businesses that will come out of energy transition, be it low carbon emissions, hydrogen, carbon capture and storage, and other initiatives as well. Last but not least, now where I look around and I look different stakeholders, you will see academia involved, scientists involved, and youth. And when I talk about youth, I talk about new knowledge, new brains, startups that will be leading technologies in climate tech, that we don't see many of them. So solutions-oriented initiatives, if I may give it that definition.
Yeah. Thanks. I mean, it's great that you highlight this. I mean, clearly we've been talking to some of the big players today, but you're right. This is an opportunity for youth. This is an opportunity for startups to contribute to that energy transition. Well, quite an exciting outlook that you have. Clearly, COP28 is going to be a big venue for clear outcomes next year. Ibrahim, thank you so much. Any final comments before we wrap up?
I think I'm gonna utilize that when I said COP28 and ambitious people clapped, so I'm gonna leave you with that positive take from me personally. First of all, based on the UAE track record on bringing countries together, I think we excelled as United Arab Emirates. And the fact that COP28 will be at Expo 2020 City, the best show on earth, and I think the UAE showed the world how we do that. So I believe COP28 will drive lots of initiatives, and I can assure you ADNOC will be part of that success and part of that success of proper and just and inclusive in our business, which is energy transition. So I'm very positive about it, and I really hope I will see most of you clapping at the same thing for COP29, not only COP28. Thank you.
Thanks, Ibrahim. Looking forward to seeing the UAE continue to play its role in an energy. Thank you very much. Shukran. Thanks a lot. Thanks.